Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Recruiting with Your Employer Brand. My name is Nina. I'm an Associate Marketing Manager here at Glassdoor, and I will be your moderator for the day. So a couple of housekeeping tips for everyone on the line before we get started. Your audio is streaming over the web, so please make sure that your speakers are turned on and turned up so that you can hear all the wonderful content we'll be sharing with you today. All lines will be muted to avoid background noise, but you can ask questions at any time by typing them into the Q&A tab in the lower left corner of your window. To be mindful of everybody's time, we will address all questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to submit those questions whenever you may have them. And for all you social butterflies out there, I'd love to have you join the conversation with us socially using the hashtag GDChat, as we will be live tweeting throughout the webinar. Our handle is GD4Employers, that's GDFOR Employers. And finally, I'd like to introduce our amazing speaker for the day. We're joined by Lisa Holden, who is the Employer Communications Manager here at Glassdoor. So Lisa, I will let you take it away for us.
Thanks, Nina, and hello to everyone on the line today. Just to give you a little background on me, I have about 10 years of experience helping companies monitor, refine, and showcase their brands in various capacities across various industries. I've been at Glassdoor for going on 5 years, where I specifically work with companies to help them monitor, refine, and showcase their employer brands to various audiences, and of course using Glassdoor to do that. I'm excited to talk to you today about a couple different facets. The first is we're going to go over really defining an employer brand. What is it? What does it mean? What does it look like? And what do you need to know about it? And then we're going to talk about the importance of an employer brand and how you can really utilize that to recruit the most informed candidates on the market today. So first of all, what is an employer brand? So when thinking about what makes up your employer brand, we can break it up into 4 main kind of contributing factors. And those are your mission and values, company culture, employees, and reputation. And so developing a meaningful employer brand begins with internal initiatives that then must be showcased, of course, externally. And once these have been established, they must all be effectively managed together. And so maintaining these different factors kind of works together to really define and refine your employer brand over time. And so as you do this and develop it as part of your practice, that's going to define your company story along the way. So let's break these down a little bit. The first one is mission and values. And your company's mission is really what serves as that kind of bottom line that informs your decisions and becomes the foundation for building a positive company culture. And so this foundation is really effective because companies with a clearly defined mission see 40% higher levels of retention, which is huge. 40% retention means that you're holding on to the great candidates that you get in the door, and those candidates are turned into great employees who really understand your business, its history, and are looking to push it forward, which is saving you time and resources when it comes to hiring, training, and things like that. And so if you put that time and energy into working to streamline the efforts of your employees by focusing on your mission and values, you're really doing your company an overall service that will really stand the test of time. So the next one is company culture. And with the foundation of set mission and values, companies that invest in their employee engagement and culture see real results. So companies with a formal engagement strategy in place are 67% more likely to improve their revenue per full-time equivalent on a year-over-year basis. So that means that by creating an environment that promotes positivity, collaboration, perks, benefits, career growth, and opportunities, you're creating that place where employees want to succeed. And that comes through in the numbers as well. So as you're pushing for more budget or more resources to really work on your employer brand and improve it, point to some of these stats as ways to improve the overall business. This isn't just about your brand or your reputation in some sort of ego focus. This is about making your business better overall. And so use these stats to fight for the things that you need to improve it. The next one I want to talk about is your employees as brand ambassadors. So your employees are this really excellent channel through which to tell your employer story. So their feedback, their reviews on Glassdoor, their tweets, their Facebook posts, etc., all point back to your company in a really authentic way. Employee reviews and the content they share actually receives 8 times more engagement than content shared by brand channels, according to the 2017 Edelman Trust Barometer. And so when you think about that, as you're thinking about ways to showcase your employer brand from the employer's perspective, there's only so far you can go. You need to kind of engage and ignite your employees so that they feel excited and free to post their perspective on what it's like to work at your company. And that authentic voice is something that's pretty irreplaceable. You can't really get that anywhere else. So it's important to really harness that and make the most of it. So today's job seeker. Employees and candidates are constantly looking at you and reviewing you. And this will affect your ability to hire and retain talent. So today, 36% of job seekers say brand or reputation of a company is the most important consideration in a potential new job. And 45%, almost half, of employees and job seekers would be willing to take a pay cut to work at an employer with a good reputation. That's huge too, and this is another reason to fight for budget and resources to help improve your employer brand, because you're going to be saving money in the long run. It literally costs less money to get people in the door if you have a high-quality brand that they can see and that resonates with them. And at the end of the day, candidates don't demand perfection. They expect a level of transparency. And it's your job to meet that need by actively managing your brand, responding to reviews, and knowing that, you know, if you're not involved in telling that story is getting told for you. So, why does your employer brand actually matter? Your employer brand matters because it's correlated with success. So for companies that place an emphasis on employer brand, they actually end up seeing 130% increase in employee engagement. So when you focus on your brand and how your story is being told, employees take note of that and involve themselves in that story as well. And so the ripples of nurturing your employer brand will be felt by various levels of your organization. It's also about easier hiring. So having an up-to-date employer brand that really showcases your company makes hiring so much easier, because people can see who you really are, and determine whether or not you're a fit for them. So we know that 3 in 4 candidates are more likely to apply to a job if the employer actively manages its employer brand, which makes sense, because once you provide information about your company and show that you care about delivering on your mission and values for your employees, people are going to want to join you and work for you and bring their best selves to work for you. And so without access to what your company culture is like or what the growth opportunities are, you know, how can a candidate be sure they want to spend that time to apply? And then once they get in the door, are they going to stay? Are they going to go? They don't have enough information to make that call yet. But candidates that are very informed along the way and get a clear picture of your company self-select out if they're not a fit, which of course saves you time and money. So working towards enhancing your employer brand also means that you're actively working to cultivate a positive company culture that is driven by company mission and values. So for businesses that commit to being mission-driven, they experience 40% higher levels of retention. And as we know, retention is crucial for companies. One study, according to the Center for American Progress, estimates that it costs businesses an average of 21% of an employee's annual salary to replace a lost worker. And that's a tremendous loss in terms of your financial books, but it's also a loss in terms of your time, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating to get the right candidate in the door, get them set up for success, only to have them leave less than a year later. And at the end of the day, when we're thinking about our own livelihoods, most people want to stay at the job that they get. They want it to be a good fit and a successful one where they can really make a difference and enjoy the work that they do every day. So, you know, we actually have a Glassdoor stat on this as well. We know that, according to a study by our chief economist, we know that 2 ratings really have an effect here. So the Glassdoor Career Opportunities rating along with its culture and values rating, are very strong predictors of employee retention. So with a 1-star improvement in either of those ratings, that will increase your retention by 5%. And I think we have the source for that on this slide, so you can take another look at that survey if you like. This also leads to better business performance. So one study that our chief economist did was he looked at all of the public companies that have won our Best Places to Work award throughout the years. And he compared their financial performance with the S&P 500. And what he found was that companies that have been rated a best place to work, which means that they have great cultures, excellent employer brands, actually outperform the S&P by 122%. And so that means that these companies are financially doing a lot better than the kind of middle-of-the-road average companies, which is huge. And another reason that you can kind of point to your leaders and say, hey, we need to focus on this. And conversely, companies that were the most low-rated on Glassdoor underperformed by almost 30%. So what that tells us is that there is a connection between your company culture, your overall brand, and your business performance and success. So, bringing your employer brand to your recruitment efforts. People love a good story at the end of the day, and truly informed candidates want to hear your business narrative. And so when candidates buy into your branded story, they're buying into the key values of your company. So your Glassdoor profile and social channels like Instagram and Facebook are really important ways to tell that story through employee reviews, your own voice, photos, videos, etc. So engaging with potential candidates through these mediums gives them the tools to become informed candidates. We know that 90% of candidates say they want to know before applying to a job. So showcase the progress you've made to transform and modernize your employer brand, because if you don't take control of your story, as I said earlier, it will be told for you. You should also align your hiring processes with your brand. So what do I mean by that? I mean, recruit for the culture you want and lead with your brand. So effective employer branding can lead to more quality applications from informed candidates. In fact, candidates are 2 times more likely to apply when jobs include employer-branded content. And so candidates should have realistic expectations going into both interviews and positions so that they can be truly informed candidates. And when you're approaching job descriptions, it's important to highlight the key features of your brand through videos or employee testimonials or other forums that speak to the company culture and values. And when engaging with candidates for interviews, include behavioral questions that will allow team members to see if the candidate can complete tasks but also function well within your work environment. And also commit to transparency. A key part of bringing your brand to recruiting is committing to this, because if you don't showcase your brand and who you really are, you won't be able to reap the benefits that we've talked about along the way of really getting those informed candidates in the door and watching them thrive. So start committing to transparency in your recruiting process and getting everyone on board with that commitment, because you can be as committed to transparency as you want from where you're sitting in the employer branding or the recruiting function of your organization. But if your legal team isn't really bought into that transparency, if your PR team, your marketing is kind of rejecting that philosophy, there's going to be a mismatch in your brand, which will actually do a disservice to you and your efforts. So make sure you're getting the entire team on board. Another step you can take today is responding to reviews. So it's completely free to do this on Glassdoor, by the way. All you need is a free employer account, and you simply log in and you're able to add an employer response to a review. And this is really important because it shows that your business cares about what past and present employees think, and that you're actively reading the reviews that come in and doing something meaningful with them. And in addition to this, encourage your employees and candidates that interview with you to post reviews on your Glassdoor profile so that you're getting that steady stream of content and really getting a sense of what's working and what isn't working at your organization. So another important step in committing to transparency in recruiting is closing the loop for candidates. So often, companies and candidates struggle with this. And candidates apply or they interview with a business and they never hear back, and they go into this black hole, which can be a really demeaning place to operate from when you're a candidate and you just want the feedback. You just want to know where you stand. And so that commitment to transparency will help you as you determine the best course of action with a candidate, whether it's to let them down gently or push them along. Committing to at least getting back to them is an important step in your commitment to transparency. And of course, when possible, leverage your employees as brand ambassadors, as they can speak to their own personal experience in a way that you can't really replicate on your own without them. The next one is to remain vigilant. So what you're looking at is a couple of screenshots from the Glassdoor Employer Center. This first image on the left here is what people are saying about your interview experience. And so this is a little keyword analysis where we've pulled out some of the most common terms used when people describe your interview experience. And this can help you draw conclusions about what's working, what isn't, what you're doing too much of or too little of throughout the interview process, and really give you a sense of what candidates are telling you. And then you can also look in our Employer Center to get a sense of who the candidates are that you're winning and those that you're losing, taking a look at analytics around acceptance rate and the job title for those. And that can help you get more insight into your recruitment process and what's working. And when I say remain vigilant, I really mean that this is not the kind of work that you do in a one-and-done capacity. This is something that you constantly should be monitoring because just like your culture, your brand is fluid and it changes through the course of time, through the candidates you come into contact with, and so it's important to remain vigilant and watch that grow and change because it will. Continuing on this track of analytics, you're seeing a couple more screenshots from your Glassdoor Employer Center, which, by the way, everyone has access to with just a free employer account. So if you haven't played around with this yet, I really encourage you to get that free employer account and log in because you'll be able to see company-specific analytics that tell you so much information about your organization and kind of aggregate the data that we've collected on Glassdoor specifically about your company to give you some really helpful insights. So what you're looking at here is employee sentiment versus competitors. And so this is an opportunity for companies to take a couple of competitors and compare how they're doing on all of these workplace factors that we collect data on. And from there you can also take a look at your brand awareness and see how your visitation compares with some of your competitors and how your rating trends are changing over time, which can give you so much insight into who you're competing with for talent and drill into very specific information about what factors you're actually competing on. So maybe there's another company in your same space that pays a little more than you, but you're outpacing them when it comes to career opportunities and culture and values. And that can be a cornerstone for your employer brand that you showcase across all these platforms that you're showcasing your brand on. So with that, I will turn it over to Nina for any questions, and hopefully we can get you guys out of here a little bit earlier and give you a little bit of time back in your day.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa, and thank you for sharing all of that wonderful information with us. So as Lisa mentioned, we will now address all questions from the audience. If you have not yet submitted your question, please take this opportunity to do so now. And for all of you that did ask, we will be sending out the slide deck and recording within 24 hours. So just be on the lookout for an email from me with those in your inbox. Okay, so the first question that we have, Lisa, is around responding to reviews, one of our favorite topics. So first question is, should we respond to old reviews?
Old reviews. Okay, think about it like this. All of the reviews that are out there about your company are from one individual, but they speak to many, right? So the way that I prioritize this, and I encourage other companies to do the same, is look at those messages and see where there's alignment, misalignment, anything wrong that you can correct, and really prioritize them in terms of topic, not so much timeline. And so when you're looking at all of the reviews that you have, where is there something that you actually need to say to correct something that might be wrong or outdated? So in an old review, it might say, the company's great, but the office is really cramped. That's a great opportunity for you to respond and say something like, thank you for this feedback. We actually took this to heart and we've expanded our office and we now have more conference rooms or whatever the case may be. Because when you're responding to an old review, yes, you're letting that person know that we've read this, we've taken the feedback and we've done something with it, but much more importantly, you're telling the entire audience, everyone who's read that review, that you hear the feedback and you've done something to change it. So responding to old reviews is great. I think once you get this going and you kind of develop a cadence, you're going to only need to respond to new reviews because the old ones will have been taken care of.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question, still on the topic of reviews, is how do you recommend responding to negative reviews?
Negative feedback is tricky, and it's emotional. So when we get a negative review, oftentimes we have a very visceral reaction, and I am not exempt from this myself. But it's important to, first of all, take a deep breath and realize that everyone's entitled to their opinion. And the reason that Glassdoor exists is to help people everywhere find jobs and companies they love. And it's this kind of feedback that helps inform those decisions. So when you get a negative review, I think there are a couple things to do. So step one is take a deep breath and don't respond right away if it's making you feel upset. The next one is involve any stakeholders that need to at least have a heads up to this. So if the negative review is about a specific department, let that department head know. If it's about something that can be fixed or is something that should be taken into consideration, let whatever team know that can have an effect on that. Facilities, a specific company department, maybe even the CEO. And from there, when you respond to the review, you're in a different position than the individual who wrote the review. You're speaking on behalf of the company. And by the way, when you respond to a review, it will show your title. So whatever title you've used to log in with your free employer account, it will show up in the response to the review. So it might say Employer Communications Manager at Glassdoor response, for example. And when you respond to that review, really embrace the tone and voice of your organization. So be concise, be gracious, thank the person for their feedback, and address any concerns that they have in a productive way. So if the office is still cramped and you don't have a plan in place to get more conference rooms or whatever the case may be, at least responding and saying, thank you for this feedback. This is something that we're taking into consideration. We're evaluating what we can do to alleviate this pressure for you. And stay tuned, more to come. That can at least help showcase that you're an employer that cares about this and you're doing what you can to evaluate if you can fix it. And you're not just kind of burying your head in the sand and ignoring the problem. So, when we address our own reviews on Glassdoor, this is an exercise we go through with our own team where we think about what we're actually, able to address, how we're able to address it, and what we can communicate publicly about what our next steps are.
All right, thank you. And again, snowballing off of that, how can you best turn a negative review into a positive recruiting moment?
Great question. I think there are a couple ways to do that. One is if there's anything in the negative review that is being addressed by your company, like a cramped office space, or maybe they talk about management needing more training, and you can point to the plans that you have in place to make sure management training happens in the future. That can really change perceptions. We actually did a survey on this, and we found that 65% of respondents say that their perception of a company improves when they see an employer respond to a review. So that means all you have to do is respond with something in order to improve the perceptions of more than half of the people who responded to this survey. And so just, take a deep breath and let yourself engage, and that's half the battle. Adding any response is an opportunity for a good employer branding moment.
Perfect. And if you do respond, will the employee or the person that wrote the review be able to see the review or see the response as well as respond to your response?
They will be able to see the response. They will not be able to respond to your response. Great question. So Glassdoor's philosophy behind this is that everyone's entitled to their opinion and their voice. So we give the employee the chance to write a review. We give the employer a chance to respond, and we leave it at that.
Perfect. Lots of questions on review, so we'll jump away from that for a second. If we got more, we may go back to it. The next question that we have is someone was asking if you could clarify where the 130% increase in employee engagement number came from.
I sure can. So this is actually from a study at Brandon Hall, and that was conducted in November 2014, where they found that prioritizing your employer brand really leads to success.
Perfect. There's a number of questions too on where people can see the analytics and the tools that you shared. So if you could specify where in the Employer Center you can see that and what portions of that are for free accounts as well as paid accounts.
Sure. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to glassdoor.com/employers, and there you just follow the prompts to get your free employer account or unlock your profile. And from there you'll be able to log in and see some company-specific analytics around things like your profile activity, your site visitation over time, analytics around your employer brand in terms of how your ratings have changed over time when it comes to your overall company rating, your CEO approval rating, etc. And you can also get access to candidate demographics. So what's the age, location, etc. breakdown for the people who are visiting your profile, and importantly, which companies they visit after they visit yours. And those are probably going to be your biggest competitors for talent. Outside of that, there are additional analytics that are on the paid side, so that's when you get into your competitor comparisons and some of the more niche details about your company-specific analytics. Those come with a customer relationship.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question we have is, can you share some examples of employer branding activities and maybe some of your favorite ones that you've seen?
Sure. So I think really this is a communication strategy at the end of the day. When it comes to employer branding activities, I think the first one is analysis. So what is your employer brand? What are people saying about you? What are the words that bubble up to the top that describe your company? And are those in alignment with your mission and your values? And if they're not in alignment, how do you realign them? And from there, the next kind of employer branding activity is really showcasing your mission and values and brand to various external audiences. So that's across social, Glassdoor, of course, and also communicating with your employee base. So making sure that you come up with an internal communication strategy that highlights your mission and your values, make sure employees understand what those are, and motivates employees to showcase that across their own platform. So whether that's some kind of contest or engagement push, that can be really effective for your employer brand. One thing that we did at Glassdoor a couple years ago, one summer, was we had a summer vacation contest where we encouraged people to bring a piece of Glassdoor flag on vacation. So whether it was a t-shirt or a hat or something like that. And we encouraged them to bring a Glassdoor item on vacation and take a cool picture with it. And we ended up with all of these great employer branding moments where we had someone in their Glassdoor t-shirt at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and someone else on a trip to Hawaii wearing a Glassdoor hat. I took a photo in my Glassdoor sweatshirt getting splashed by Shamu. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for you to do things like that kind of feel authentic for your company. So that might not be the right strategy for you, but that can at least get the wheels turning.
Love that story. The next question that we have is, what is the best way to engage current employees on Glassdoor?
What is the best way to encourage employees to engage on Glassdoor? So you can do this in a couple different ways. Again, that free employer account is going to be really helpful for you here. If you log into the Employer Center, there's actually a couple prompts you can follow to email your workforce right from that platform. And we actually generate a little email message that you're welcome to edit as you see fit that just simply explains what Glassdoor is, why reviews are so valuable, and encourages your employees to share their authentic voice. If you don't want to go through the free employer account, you can still take that generated email and send it out through a traditional email or use Workplace or whatever platform you use to communicate with your workforce and send them a little message. Another way that we enforce this here is that we will verbally encourage people to write reviews at company all-hands or little more informal team huddles that we have. You can put signs up around your office, and importantly, this is a really good one, you can encourage your management level employees who manage teams to encourage their teams individually, because people want to make sure that it's okay. I think some people might have the misconception that their employers don't want to hear from them on such a public platform like Glassdoor. And so make sure that you're communicating with the management team to say, no, this is something we actually want, and so you should encourage your teams individually to make sure it happens.
Perfect.
And of course, I just do want to plug, make sure you're not incentivizing reviews. That's against our community guidelines, and if we have reasonable evidence that you're doing that, we will remove the reviews from your page. So make sure you're not incentivizing.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question is, do you have any advice for someone if a new marketing department really wants to go in a different direction and focus less on employer brands than they were previously?
Ooh, yes, I do. This is about winning them over with the data that employer brand is important. So take a look at these slides once Nina sends them out today, and pull out some of those stats that I mentioned, particularly the analysis that our chief economist did around companies with high employer brands, so those best places to work, and how they outperform the S&P. You can also point to the stat I mentioned earlier that 65% of respondents actually say their perception of a company improves when they see an employer responding to a review. And there's so many stats in this webinar that point to the importance of this. And if a marketing team wants to go in another direction, ask them why, and ask for that same kind of support in the numbers. Because I think when you dig into this, you see that this is a really crucial element of your business, and if you're not doing it, you better have a pretty strong argument as to why.
Perfect. Thank you. It looks like we do have some more regarding reviews, so we're going to hop back to that topic really quickly. A couple questions on if you can remove a review either from a candidate or employee that no longer works at the company, and if that's recommended to remove a negative comment.
So you cannot remove any content from Glassdoor. We keep the reviews up, and there's no way to remove a review from Glassdoor, because if it's a former employee or what have you. We actually allow current and former employees to write reviews about companies, and we believe that they both have a unique voice and something relevant to say about the organization. That being said, one caveat, we only allow former employees to write reviews of organizations that they have been a part of for the past 5 years. So if you've been gone from an organization for more than 5 years and you want to go back and write a review now, we won't allow that, because we believe that 5-year mark is enough to change that your voice or your opinion might not be as valid since so much time has gone by. So that's the cap that we set there. But if it's been less than 5 years, they're more than welcome to leave a review. So you cannot remove it. You can always respond to it. And I think the response is really crucial here, because you may not want to address some of the things that they've pointed to or some of that negativity, but adding your voice is actually really crucial for anyone reading the review to get a better sense of how your company responds to negative feedback, how your company responds to issues. And can really be a good opportunity for you to showcase some of the great things about your company. So I do encourage you to respond to those with something like, hi, I'm sorry to see this wasn't a fit for you anymore. We're sorry to see you go, and your concerns are appreciated, and we value feedback, and we use it to make better decisions moving forward. Something as brief as that can still send a message about your company and how you take feedback.
Perfect. And do you recommend providing an email address on your response to the review if the commenter wants to respond or kind of take the conversation offline?
Sure. That's something that we've certainly done on our end too. I don't think we've ever actually put an email address, but go for it if that's what works for you. What we've said before, and I've seen other companies do this really smoothly too, is that because your title appears when you respond to a review, so in my case it would say Employer Communications Manager at Glassdoor says the following, I would say something like, come see me if you feel comfortable, because I'd like to continue this conversation. So it gives the person the opportunity to reach out if they'd like, but while still respecting their anonymity. But yeah, go ahead and share an email address, maybe an alias, if you feel comfortable. The only other thing I want to address, back on that question of removing a review, we do really appreciate our community feedback on reviews. So if a review comes up and there's something in it that doesn't meet our community guidelines, you are always free to flag that review. So I just want to make that clear.
Perfect. And I think that comment that you just mentioned kind of goes into the next question on what can you do if a previous employee provides negative feedback and specifically calls out a current employee?
Great question. So one element of our community guidelines is that we do not allow people to call out by name specific people at the organization in a negative way. That's outside of anyone who is a public figure of the company. So they can call the CEO by name, they can call the head of communications or something like that by name, but I can't point to Nina in 3 cubicles over and say something negative about her, which I never would. So if you see something like that, say something. And the way to do that is simply flag the review on Glassdoor. You'll see a little flag button, and then a text box will show up where they'll ask you for more feedback about why you're flagging the review. And feel free to point to those community guidelines and say, I see a misalignment here, and I'd like you to take another look. And just for everyone's information, we actually have a team of human moderators who take a look at this kind of thing. So if you flag a piece of content, it goes to that team of folks who will take another look, read over our community guidelines, and make a call as to whether or not the review will remain on site.
Good. Thanks for that clarification. Is there a way to group feedback by topic so people who come to the site can see similar reviews and replies in one strand?
So you can filter by time, so recency. You can also filter by location, and I believe title, but I don't believe that you can filter by topic.
Perfect. The next question is more of an opinion or recommendation of where someone should start. If they're just starting to manage their employer brand, haven't yet claimed their account on Glassdoor, and have a number of negative reviews, what would be your recommendation on first steps in getting all of that going?
Sure. So I think the first step here, if you have a fair amount of negative reviews that you're really looking to address, a great place to start is internal communication versus external. And what I mean by that is taking a look at these reviews in an aggregate, pulling out some of the key themes and prioritizing them in terms of what you're going to address first and why and how. And then really doing a thorough job of communicating those efforts to your current internal workforce. Because what that says to the people who have left those reviews is, we hear you. We want to do something with this information, and here's our plan moving forward. And once you've kind of communicated that, that's an important effort towards actually making some of these changes. And so, of course, once you make those changes, start responding to those reviews with how you're making changes, and that becomes your external strategy. But really communicating to your internal team first is going to be really key as you go further along in this process.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question that we have is kind of a particular situation where a large portion of their employees are in production and in a union environment. They're anticipating a potential flood of feedback with some being negative. Do you have any suggestions on how to encourage production employees to add a review or to educate what Glassdoor is all about?
Absolutely. So log into that Employer Center and grab that email that explains why reviews are so important, and use that to develop your communication strategy. Another way to do this is to simply showcase what you've learned about your company on Glassdoor through the reviews with your employee base. So what I mean by that is at the next team meeting or all company huddle, pull up a slide or two with screenshots of your Glassdoor profile and some of the recent reviews you've gotten, and talk about how valuable those reviews are as you determine what your next steps are for your organization, and encourage people to share what's working in an authentic way so that you can get a better sense of how to move forward. And if you give them insight into that process and how it's working for you, that you're kind of getting everyone on the same page with what these reviews are really for and how they can be part of that process.
Perfect. It looks like the last question we have from the audience is, their company has changed names and they currently have 2 profiles. Is there a way to merge the 2 so you don't have 2 different profiles?
Yep, that's something they can talk to their customer service representative about, and we're happy to help you out with that.
Perfect. So it looks like with that we are letting you all go a couple minutes early, 20, back in your day. So once again, thank you, Lisa, for sharing all of your wonderful information with us today. And to everyone that joined us, thank you for taking the time to tune in. Really appreciated having you on the line, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.